Odinism is a recognized religion in some Northern European countries, and it's making a comeback. Odinism, the worship of Odin, basically. And what I found out about it is that a lot of like nationalists, or some nationalists in European countries, embrace it and disavow Christianity sort of as Europeans succumbing to Jewish influence, and instead want to embrace Odinism. And sometimes you'll see white supremacists, and even in America. In fact, there was a guy in Mesa, Arizona a couple years ago, and they showed him, and he's all tattooed up. And right here, he had a Thor's hammer tattooed on his chin. And I guess Thor's hammer is now commonly used as a white supremacist symbol. Now, that doesn't mean if anyone, is rocking Thor stuff, they're a white supremacist. Most people don't know about this. But there's a certain level of, I guess, some of these pagan religions are making comeback among certain populations. And in fact, prison populations, it appears, to a certain extent, are embracing Odinism. There's even a religion called the Soldiers of Odin. You can look them up. So I found this very interesting, and I was looking into this cult. There's a lot of interesting things about it. In fact, there's a white nationalist group that boycotted Thor because there was one of the gods, the guy who can see everything.
Yeah.
The actor who plays him is black, Idris Elba. Well, they were upset because you can't have a Norse god be a black man, according to these white supremacists.
Yeah. Well, and that's what you find with most of these ideas. I mean, my guess is the Odinism follows a lot of paganism, a lot of even those, the Jedi faith. People who've registered as Jedi are not the tens of thousands across Britain and Europe and Australia. Yeah. It's a big thing now to put that, but most of that is either tongue-in-cheek, or for those who are quote-unquote serious about it, what they're serious about is the nationalistic aspects of it, not the faith aspects of it. They don't truly believe that there's an Odin on Asgard. They just know that what they do is and this is the danger of relegating faith to something that is just whatever I wish to believe, I may believe. And when you tell people that all faith is just something that you've chosen to believe, then I can choose to believe something that makes my nationalism, stand up, and it's my nationalism, right? And this is where you get the idea of Islam. When in African countries they said, well, Christianity is the white man's religion, therefore the black man, Nation of Islam is what I'm saying. All of a sudden, the black man has to be Islamic because that's not a white man's faith. Well, no, but it's not a black man's faith either. It was a Middle Eastern faith. It was, so these things are tied up with political and those kinds of things. They're not really faith statements in the traditional concept of what forms your worldview. How did we get here? They don't answer the questions of, is there a God? They just answer the questions of, what do I want the world to look like?
Well, I've been looking into a lot of these new kind of nationalists. A higher percentage of them self-identify in some way as an atheist.
Right.
For example, what's the main guy? Richard Spencer. He's an atheist, and they say things like, your race is your religion. They'll say things like that. And it's interesting. They'll say it's like your race, whatever. I'm not even a fan of that term, biblically speaking, but your race is the most fundamental thing about you. And so there's been
well, he'd have a hard time defining what race is my guess.
Right, yeah. You see this kind of rise, and I guess, because they view Christianity as like a weak thing. Let me read a little bit from an article on this. I just wanted to leave this out to end with this because I thought this was a fascinating thing. Potok noted that the tradition is also increasingly popular among prison populations, where many white supremacists sport tattoos of Norse emblems alongside fading brands of swastikas and Celtic crosses. Casper Crowe, a former leader of the racist Aryan Brotherhood gang, runs the Holy Nation of Odin, Inc., from a maximum security prison in California, where you're serving a life sentence for shooting man in 95. Quote, this is Potok, he knows about this stuff. To followers, the Norse gods are the big, tough white guys who, when they see a woman they want, grab her by the hair and pull her in the cave. It's seen as an ultra-male, super-masculine religion, which is antithetical to Christianity and Judaism. And then he adds, it's a comic book religion in a lot of ways. And I'll look at this. Together, Odinism and Asatru, that's the Icelandic counterpart of Odinism, constitute the largest non-Christian religion in Iceland, are officially recognized by Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. It's gaining steam in America, too, where Thor's hammer is now allowed to be carved into military gravestones, and prisoners are granted special accommodations to carry out rituals. So I thought that was fascinating. I think it's probably somewhat of a misappropriation. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the movie, but all that's fascinating how symbols and legends and stories, or it's like they don't go away, and they're worked and reworked and given new meaning and subverted and changed, but it's still relevant, thousands of years later, albeit in a different way. But it's very interesting, to say the least. Yeah. And even today, right, the superheroes kind of get ran through a Christian filter a lot of times, right, which is kind of your point.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's kind of interesting though, and as an aside, the fact that we're doing this on a Thursday, that's what Thursday actually translates to, is Thor's Day, right?
It was not an accident.
Yeah. So we see these kinds of things, and that's why the film, I thought, was kind of interesting, because it blended quite a bit of, it had to blend the Norse mythology, but it had to be, as you say, baptized. The film, if you were to play it off as pure Norse, triumphalism, it wouldn't have worked. And I don't think the audiences would have appreciated it. But because Thor has to be a hero, they have to kind of backtrack and make him a little more humble and a little bit more giving than he would have been otherwise. And so the film is interesting. There's a lot of pieces there that you can see the Christianity kind of leaking into. So
Henry Wadsworth Longfellow actually has a poem called The Challenge of Thor. And what it is it's Thor bragging, basically, and then challenging another god. But I want you to listen to this poem. I'm actually going to read this. Here's what's interesting about this. Listen to the god he challenges at the end of this poem. This is highly interesting. So this is The Challenge of Thor by a famous American author, poet, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. I won't read it in a Norwegian accent, since I can't do one. I am the god Thor. I am the war god. I am the thunderer. Here in my Northland, my fastness and fortress, reign I forever. Here amid icebergs rule I the nations. This is my hammer, Mjolnir the mighty. Giants and sorcerers cannot withstand it. These are the gauntlets wherewith I wield it, and hurl it afar off. This is my girdle, wherever I brace it. Strength is redoubled. The light thou beholdest stream through the heavens, in flashes of crimson is but my red beard, blown by the right wind, affrighting the nations. Jove is my brother, mine eyes are the lightning. The wheels of my chariot roll in the thunder, the blows of my hammer ring in the earthquake. Force rules the world still, has ruled it, shall rule it. Meekness is weakness. Strength is triumphant over the whole earth. Still, it is Thor's day. Thou art a god too, O Galilean, and thus single-handed unto the combat, gauntlet or gospel, here I defy thee. That's a poem. The Challenge of Thor. Did everyone catch? Meekness is weakness. Exactly what Lenny was saying. Opposite of what, of course, Jesus taught. And then it says, thou art a god too. So Thor is speaking to another god, O Galilean. Anyone want to guess in the comment section who the Galilean is? I don't see any guesses, but I think Lenny knows. Pretty clear, right? Yeah, but I think Wadsworth, to be fair, I think Longfellow was writing that to show that there's no way you can live in both worlds. I don't know that he was, promoting ancient Norse mythology. I would say he was the contradiction between the two. he was a Unitarian. I kind of looked into him a little bit, so he kind of had that certain view, of Christ. I don't think he was promoting Thor, but I think he was showing this ancient Norse mythological deity. You would think if he would challenge Jesus, you would think Thor would win, and thus single-handed into the combat, gauntlet or gospel, here I defy thee. But I think the verdict of history is that Jesus Christ has won. In fact, specifically, when you talk about Norway and some of those Germanic tribes, the Christians, sometimes through good means, missionaries, for example, sometimes through less valiant means, armies, for example, conquered the worshippers of Thor. They conquered Thor. There's a famous story. No one knows the exact truth of how it happened exactly, about Boniface going out there to Thor's oak, and that the Thor worshippers believe was like his thing, and he either struck it down, felled it with an axe, or a mighty blow of wind came and knocked it down. And as the story goes, the worshippers of Thor converted to Christianity basically on the spot, because they saw this Christian missionary triumphing over Thor. And I think perhaps Longfellow, maybe he had that story in mind when he says, gauntlet or gospel, here I defy thee. Ultimately, Jesus Christ, who taught the meek shall inherit the earth, defeats Thor.